Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America?
You just saw a glimpse of the UFC fight that took place on the White House lawn for Donald Trump's 80th birthday, and it was somehow even more trashy than I expected it to be. It looked like a real-life parody of the Hunger Games or a dumber version of the movie Idiocracy. And I actually don't know how many clips I can show you since the event is paywalled by Paramount. Nonetheless, HuffPost did publish a bunch of photographs that I want to show you because they really encapsulate the vibes of this event, and the vibes, predictably, are very, very bad. They're dystopian, they're downright humiliating, and I want to show you what I mean. So here's a picture of tech billionaire Mark Zuckerberg seen schmoozing the president like the spineless, brown-nosing loser he is. You can also see an ocean of ecstatic inbred incels collectively producing what I can only assume are nuclear levels of stench that probably caused DC's air quality index to drop by at least 100 points. And then other people showed up donning American flag outfits, which is actually pretty legally risky because if they fart, I think that's technically flag desecration, which comes with a year-long prison sentence under the Trump regime. Still, it's a bold choice, and I hand it to them for that. Now, here's another picture. This is the exact demographic that you would expect to see at this event, and they were just throwing shit on the ground like it didn't matter. And, you know, you can only imagine what these same people would say if a Democratic president allowed this level of defilement of our precious and beloved White House. Oh, and of course, pro-Trump billionaire David Ellison, whose network carried the event, was also spotted there, probably so Donald Trump can thank him in person for buying up all the remaining American media outlets and turning them all into right-wing rags. And the cherry on top of the shit sundae was when UFC fighter Josh Hokit called former First Lady Michelle Obama a man, which really speaks to the childish mentality of the people at this event. Like, I've always said that MAGA is composed of emotionally stunted adults, and every day it's like they're trying to prove me right. What exactly is the takeaway here in saying that Michelle Obama is a man? That he thinks she's ugly, or that he thinks she's a transgender woman? My guy, you support an uncharacteristically moist president with a neck pussy who unevenly slathers an entire bottle of Jergens Afterglow self-tanning lotion all over his face every morning. I don't think you're in a position to judge the looks of anyone else. And if Obama were transgender, then what? If she was actually a trans woman, then what? Being trans isn't a bad thing. You're essentially just pointing at her and laughing like a 9-year-old bully would do to somebody on the playground because they had freckles or something. Like, it is a childish insult that's more embarrassing for you than Michelle Obama. But apparently, even the UFC's fans think that this guy is very, very cringeworthy, and they were already making fun of him before he made that dumbass remark, because at the weigh-in, he decided to pretend to be drunk and fake vomited on himself. And I just want to read you some of the reactions from fans, courtesy of Anthlon Sports, because they did not think that it was as cute as he did. Quote, "What an ass. He's not even remotely funny." Quote, "Threw up. Guy spit out some applesauce he stashed in his mouth. Jesus effing Christ, who the F likes this? A fighter vomiting on himself? Y'all tune in for this? Fuck out of here. Don't think I've hated a UFC fighter more. So performative, attention-seeking, and cringe. I don't care if it's an act. This dude is fucking weird and lame. I will never watch the UFC ever again. This is some WWE shit. I hate this motherfucker. Fuck the UFC. Thank F there are other MMA organizations. Never watching this garbage again." And I had to censor some of the F words, otherwise YouTube might think I'm being a little bit too naughty, but I don't blame them because this is middle school humor that makes the entire sport that they love look like a joke. But as embarrassing as this shit show was, I actually do have a hot take that might shock you. I personally loved it. I loved every second of it, albeit for very different reasons than Trump supporters, obviously. See, I enjoyed it in a roundabout way because it forced Americans to see America the way that I've always seen this country, as a complete and utter fucking joke. See, because even before Trump, I've never understood patriotism. You know, it's something that we've all been pressured to be patriotic, but it never made sense to me. It was always weird to me that I'm the one who gets dirty looks because I don't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Why is everybody else giving me side-eye when they're the ones being weird? Why should I feel pride about the imaginary borders that I was randomly born in when that same pride is used to justify heinous acts of violence in other countries? We have to invade Iran and Iraq because we're superior to them. They're barbarians, and we're the civilized ones. We're the good guys. They're the bad guys. We're the best country ever, so anything that we do is justified. And we tell ourselves how amazing we are, I think, so we don't feel bad about all of the atrocities that we commit. And we're pressured to say how amazing we are over and over again as soon as we even learn how to talk, because if we stop jerking ourselves off about how fucking perfect we are, even for a second, reality might set in. You have to say it again and again and again so it becomes true to you. Think about it. We have deified our founders of all people for bringing us freedom, even though they were wig-wearing clowns that designed our entire constitution around slavery, on territory where the native population was ethnically cleansed and genocided, which still isn't recognized to this day, mind you, because if we recognize that, it would contradict our hero narrative. But we're told all of this was necessary. We had to do this stuff to establish the greatest country in the history of the world. And anyone who thinks otherwise, they must hate America, which is a country that you have to pay cult-like fealty to if you live here in order to achieve its blessing in the form of the American dream, which is only attainable if you really believe in it. And, maybe that was achievable at one point. Maybe there was an American dream, almost exclusively for white people, of course. But they're still telling us that it's shameful to not be patriotic, even though they're telling us it's our fault if we can't make it in this late-stage capitalist hellscape that they've created for us. It's our fault, not theirs. It's a joke. So, no, I don't feel pride for a country founded on lies and genocide and racism that doesn't even bother to offer us the illusion of democracy anymore. And in a weird way, Trump is pulling the mask off of our country and forcing us to see it for what it really is and what it always has been, a downright fucking embarrassment to humanity. And I think it's good that millions of Americans are finally seeing this country the way it actually is and not the way we're told it is. And that's the effect I think Trump is having. A poll by Navigator Research found that all of the vanity projects Trump is pursuing shows Americans that he's focused on all the wrong things. A majority of Americans think that his 22-foot golden statue, his face on a $250 bill, his UFC fight, and his demolition of the East Wing for a ballroom is the wrong thing for him to be focused on, and a sizable amount of MAGA Republicans agree with that. Moreover, a strong plurality of Americans think that his 250-foot tall arch, his renovation of the reflecting pool, and his $1.8 billion slush fund demonstrates that he's focused on the wrong things. Because think about it, how can the greatest country in the world be focused on things that are so useless and meaningless, that do nothing to improve anyone's material conditions? See, in an indirect way, I'm actually glad, though, that Trump is hyper-focusing on all of these vanity projects. One, because him doing all of this meaningless bullshit is less harmful than any policies that he would otherwise be pursuing, like the SAVE Act. And two, because Americans have never had a more in-your-face example of how little their government cares about them. It's like Trump is rubbing it in our faces. It's like saying, hey, fuck you, America. And it really forces them to reckon with the idea of patriotism if you have a leader that was popularly elected that can just turn around and spit in your face like this. And CNN data analyst Harry Anton explains that there is a political impact that this UFC fight in particular is having.
Take a look here. UFC White House fights are appropriate. Just 16% overall. And among Republicans, even among Republicans, you know, the diehard base Republican Party with Trump through thick and thin, just 31% of Republicans. His approval rating amongst Republicans overall, as you know, usually hovers a little bit north of 80%. So we're talking 50 points lower here. And, this overall, being 16%, what is it, like 28% of Americans, believe in telepathy? So this is even below that.
Does this fall into a broader pattern with the White House in voters' minds?
Yeah, I think this is the big problem here, Omar, which is, Americans just don't think that Donald Trump and this White House is in touch with them because, they put on stuff like that Americans don't really care about. Take a look here. Say the White House is out of touch with people like you. 60% overall. We're talking about 3 in 5 Americans. And look among independents. 80% of independents say that the White House is out of touch with people like them. So all of a sudden you have a White House that is potentially putting on events such as this UFC fights. And, Americans' top issue is inflation. And what's Trump's net approval rating on that? Like minus 50? And you go to yourself, okay, appropriate? No on the UFC fights, and then you put it together with what they actually care about. No wonder that the American people say 60% say the White House is out of touch with people like them, and 80% of independents.
So this is why I approve of the UFC fight for strategic purposes. I think that the vibes and the symbolism are necessary to wake Americans the fuck up once and for all and get them to realize that the way they're viewing the Trump regime is the way that everyone around the world has viewed the American empire for a very long time. Trump is an ugly face that just forces Americans to view the American empire through the lens of every other human being on the planet. We've always been this ugly to everybody else, because think about it. Do you think the people in Southeast Asia or Latin America thought that we were awesome? Thought that we were the greatest country ever when we were pillaging their countries for decades for their natural resources? Did Iraq think that America was super awesome when Bush invaded them and caused the Civil War? Caused at least 1 million deaths? Did the people of Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia think that Obama was as suave and charming as we all thought when he was drone striking their grandmothers while they were gardening, drone striking people while they were getting married? Did the people of Palestine think that Joe Biden restored decency to the White House while he was giving Israel the weapons that they were using to commit a genocide? Do you think the people of Iran see Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu as liberators while they bomb the schools that their kids are going to? I don't think so. They probably didn't feel too good about us before the war, seeing as how the U.S. teamed up with Great Britain to overthrow Iran's democratically elected leader Mohammad Mossadegh because he dared to nationalize their oil so people in Iran would benefit from that oil instead of Western corporations. We've never been the good guys. And as much as I hate Donald Trump and actually do think he poses a unique, greater threat than any other president, he is useful in the sense that he's basically holding a mirror up to all of our faces and showing us who we are. His disgusting, shameless behavior is forcing Americans to collectively reckon with who we are and how our leaders let things get so bad that millions of people voted for an openly fascist authoritarian con man in the first place. We really need to grapple with the underlying causes here. And with each passing day, it seems like Trump is forcing more and more Americans to be introspective about the country that we were told to be so proud of. It says something about every single one of us that this man is our president. Maybe we didn't vote for him, I didn't, but I have family members who did. The same is probably true for a lot of you. So he's all of our problem. And if you try to look past the spectacle of the UFC event and talk to people about how they feel or even look at why they're going, things start to come into focus. To show you what I mean, I want to share this clip from MS Now.
Now, if you really look at this crowd, I want you to observe something. The bulk of the people in here, they're young. These are young men. And if you think about the president's base or the core of his base, this is his bread and butter across ethnicities. In 2024, he improved his performance with young black men, with young Latino men, young white men. So if you think about who's coming out to support this, who may actually praise the fact that he's having a UFC match on White House grounds, or the people in line, all of whom appear to be pretty supportive of the president. That being said, we have also, over the course of the last few days, talked to plenty of people who take issue with this entire thing, describing it as a circus, a spectacle. I just spoke to a gentleman who called it a clown show, and really taking issue with the amount of taxpayer resources going to this. Now, I'll point out the actual UFC structure that was built on White House grounds, that 92-foot claw, that was paid for by UFC and its affiliates. According to a court filing, it cost around $60 million. But when you think about the law enforcement presence here, I mean, we have seen DEA, we have seen U.S. Marshals, we've seen the National Guard, Maryland State Troopers, Metropolitan Police, Secret Service agents, a huge law enforcement presence here. The fact that they've closed multiple major roads, there is still a very large taxpayer cost. I want to play for you some of the backlash I heard from a resident of D.C. Take a listen.
It's a circus rather than a celebration of the country. I still feel like we've gotten away from all of the things that make the country great, all of the other historical facts. I'm not sure where UFC fits in with celebration of the United States and our existence, but go figure.
Yeah. So all of those young men who showed up that support Donald Trump, they don't support him because he's addressing the economic anxiety that they're feeling through meaningful policy solutions. They support him because Trump distracts them from the pain that they're feeling from their economic predicament with bread and circus. And that, my friends, is the modus operandi of the American empire, always has been. We're told we are the greatest country on earth, and if you can't make it in this hyper-capitalist, hyper-individualistic society, then that's your fault. So that's why unconditional patriotism is so crucial to the American empire, because patriotism is used to reinforce the very system that oppresses everyone. The system can never, ever fail us. We can only fail ourselves. If we don't make it, that's our fault. But I mean, you can't have everybody in society super depressed and angry about their economic situation, because that will lead to social instability that threatens capital. So you do have to give them something to take their mind off of the pain. It's what the Roman Empire did. And now we're doing it pretty explicitly. Bread and circus. That's what this UFC fight does in a nutshell, in my opinion. And like, think about Trump himself and why he alone is the embodiment of the American dream despite his wealth. Because this man is very clearly one of the biggest dipshits who's ever lived. So if a dumb, pathetic loser like him found success in this system, if he can make it, then there's still hope for the rest of us. You know, don't think about the fact that he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Just think about how, you know, you don't have to be bright to make it. You don't have to get an education. You don't have to be empathetic. You could be a piece of shit and you can still be successful. You can give in to all of your worst impulses, treat people like shit, treat women like shit, treat minorities like shit, and you could be successful. That's also, I think, why they're drawn to him. But when it comes to the system itself, anytime Americans start to get closer to the truth and begin to realize that it's the system and not them, the system offers a new scapegoat for them to sacrifice to temporarily ease their pain. It's always some group of people with even less power than they have, be it immigrants or trans people or Muslims or black people or gay people or any other marginalized group that can serve that purpose and fit that narrative. But with regard to patriotism in particular, to reject the idea of it is to deny the empire a useful tool that they need to perpetuate our misery and keep the cycle going year after year. So again, that is why I hope that Trump keeps doing these kinds of things, because if he's making us all look so foolish that we can't help but question our own patriotism, we begin to wonder why we ever felt that way in the first place and ask ourselves what exactly we were proud of to begin with. Because if our system fell victim to this obvious buffoon clown man who turned the country into whatever the fuck this is, maybe it was never worthy of our pride in the first place.
Tremendous, 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 tremendous.